Thank you everyone for joining. We've got lots of people joining in today, very much like your host today, where we've got people that are registered from all over the world. I know we've got a couple of our hosts today, our guests are in the States. Then there's also a couple of us in Europe, and I think it's going to be kind of the same thing for the audience today. So let's get started. My name is Alondra, and I'm from the team here at Hostfully. Thanks so much again for joining us. We're featuring our good friends, Kati and Brian from Overlooked2overbooked. Kati and Brian, as a lot of you know, are no strangers to our webinars. In fact, we're so grateful to them and that they're joining us today because their webinars are some of the most popular ones on our site. In fact, they bring a lot of experience and information, but today they're going to share with us the 10 things they've learned from interviewing hosts in 2021. We're also joined today by my wonderful colleague, Coulter Robinson, who will be keeping an eye on incoming questions. As you see, there's a chat box to your, and there's also a poll. So you can ask questions in that chat box, and you can certainly participate in the poll as well. For those of you who are not yet familiar with Hostfully, I'll go ahead and pass on the mic to Coulter, who will give you a quick overview of what we do and who we are. Go ahead, Coulter.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Alondra. And thanks again, Brian, Kati, for taking the time to join us for a second time here at Hostfully. So real quick, before we dive into the exciting part with Brian and Kati, I just want to give you all a very brief background, some more information about Hostfully. So at Hostfully, we offer two best in industry products. One is your full tip to tail solution, which is our property management platform. That's going to be the core backend software that you use to automate, streamline, and really centralize your day-to-day operations. And then we've got our digital guidebook platform as well. So that's going to replace what would be your traditional welcome packet. This is going to be something that the guests absolutely, we've been receiving phenomenal feedback about. So both of our products, they are sold separately. The digital guidebook platform, it does work with any other property management system out there, or it works with no property management software. So again, both very dynamic, but if you do use them both together, it does have some additional automation capabilities. Our property management platform, that's, like I mentioned earlier, your full tip to tail solution to connect the different OTAs that you might be using, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com, a wide variety of others. We offer you a direct booking website as well, so you can focus more on getting direct reservations, and then automation tools such as automated messaging, payment processing. We've got a wide variety of reports available to you as well. And then in addition, we give you the capability to sync all of those calendars, sync content with all the booking channels. So really, again, just that automation, central organization for you running your day-to-day business. And then the guidebooks, like you can see listed there, it's designed to ultimately enhance or boost that guest experience, cut down on guest communication because they've got all of the questions answered within that guidebook that they might typically be coming to you about. You can use this to upsell products and services for another source of revenue, and even use this to collect guest emails and have them sign agreements. So again, both very dynamic. They are sold separately, and you can find more info on these on our website as well, hostfully.com. Our guidebook, it's a very simple platform as well. The guest doesn't need to download an app. It's just going to be a web-based solution, meaning you just send them a link and they're going to get access right into that guidebook, and you choose to when you want to send it to them, whether it's a day before arrival, the day of arrival, or maybe right when they make that reservation, so they can start exploring what they're going to need to know about coming into your property. And like I mentioned earlier, property management platform, full tip to tail solution. I just want to point out, we won one of the best, the Keystone Award in 2021. We also won this in 2019, just being recognized as one of the best softwares in the vacation rental space specific to property management platforms. We're one of the most integrated platforms in the entire vacation rental industry, just meaning if there's other tools that you might use, whether it's dynamic pricing, maybe it's an automated messaging tool, a payment processor, smart lock devices, we've got a wide variety of integrations as well for you, just to help you to scale your business and allow you to focus more on getting reservations as opposed to, managing the day-to-day tasks that might get a little bit tedious from time to time. So that's the quick rundown here on Hostfully. I also just want to point out real quick, we've got a variety of reports, case studies, and webinars all available on our website. So I encourage you all to go to hostfully.com, check those out, a lot of which we've done with current users. So they're going to show you how we've allowed them to scale their business, how we've helped them to do that in that process. So again, just go to hostfully.com, check those out. But with that being said, time to get to the fun part here. So I'm going to hand you all off to Kati and Brian, and Katie, Brian, feel free to take it away.
Well, thank you so much. We're super excited to be here. We're actually going to start with a 1-minute video commercial from Verbo, just because they did such a good job. And I think it sets a really nice tone for a lot of what we're going to be talking about later on. So when you watch this video, obviously we're talking about listings, which for the most part are static, except Verbo does let you put in a video if you want. But let's think about how we're going to translate the kind of thing that they're going for in a live commercial into the 30, 40, or 50 static images that your listing is going to have in it. Take it away, Katie.
This is the canoe that a young couple will get gloriously lost in together. This is the checkers game where grandson and granddad will bond. These are the woods where a daughter will tell a mother she's nervous about starting a new school. This is the pool where cannonball records will be broken. This is where new parents will remember life before becoming new parents. And this is the kitchen where the new boyfriend will unofficially become family. These are the Verbo vacation homes waiting for you to fill with your family. Your together awaits. Find it with Verbo.
Okay, so we're not telling you to use Verbo as a platform necessarily, but we are going to piggyback off some of the things that they did there, and some of those things we can do or you can do within your listing. Some of them they have the luxury of being able to do within the video mode. So what we're going to talk about today is a bunch of things that we learned from talking to you guys last year. So our business model shifted a bit, and almost all of our business started at the front end with listing assessments, which we'll talk about at the end of today's call as well. And a listing assessment was when our team took your listing, went through it, and said, you know, what about this makes me want to stay there? What about it doesn't make me want to stay there? What would I change if it were my listing? And we would craft a laundry list of all those things. And then in the course of about an hour, I would go through that with the host, give them all those tips, and then offer them the opportunity to potentially work with us at a number of different levels of engagement if they so chose, or they can just take our advice and go off and implement that stuff themselves. But in the course of those interviews, we picked up a lot of stuff. We saw a lot of trends. We saw a lot of fears. We saw a lot of worries. We saw a lot of overconfidence and certain things. And so we wanted to kind of go through some of those today. I'll take some of them. Katie will take some of them. So number one, you learn things from looking at hundreds of listings that you wouldn't otherwise see. Well, that's kind of obvious, right? But what are those things? Well, sometimes it was when you looked at the competition. This is in the Poconos. So this is just 6 photos. Now notice one of these things is not like the other. Was that a Sesame Street thing or electric company? I can't remember who used to say that, but one of these things is not like the other. You got 5 exteriors, and then you have some purple chairs in an awesome living room. Well, that's the one more people are going to click on. And so we like to think about that. We call it the magnet photo. It's the one that has to pull you into the rest of the listing. We want your magnet photo to be something that stands out from your competition. So it's not enough just to say, what's my best feature? If everybody is leading with the same best feature, then everyone blends in. So this purple chair photo has done amazing things for the host who has it. Now, it doesn't guarantee that people are going to book. They have to follow through with the rest of the listing, but it gives them a head start. It's a primal brain thing that people are attracted to bright colors. They're attracted to things that are different. And so one of the things you can do is look at your competition. We'll talk about this a bit too. There's been a kind of a progression in terms of the overall quality of listings. They've moved to where the center of the bell curve is now what we call a real estate shoot. This is pretty much a real estate shoot, right? It's at least bright. It's not blurry and dark, but it doesn't have a lot of personality. And we'll talk about that later. So the things that you can do is look at your competition, think about how your assets compare and contrast, and how can you do something that stands out. We can talk about close-ups. We'll get into that. There's a variety of things that are missing from the real estate shoot. There's nothing that's close up. Everything's from the same distance. There's nothing on big countertops. So there's not a lot of personality there. So we'll talk about this. Some of these points are going to be foreshadowing for the second half of the presentation. I think we're ready for number 2. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, so something else that we noticed looking at reviews, and then when we look at a review, we also look at the competition for that person, because out of curiosity, as if we're the guest browsing the town. And was one of the things that we noticed, and this was one of Brian's big universal themes, is that many listings still stop at the property perimeter. So they're truly just talking about and showing things like up to the property line. Maybe they have a couple of photos of the yard, but no exteriors beyond that. And I just added this photo here. So you would imagine if you have a rental somewhere in San Francisco, anywhere near the Golden Gate Bridge, you'd think, well, of course you can see it, or of course you can walk to it. But it doesn't hurt to put it in the listing, guys. Especially if you have like a unique viewpoint, like, hey, you can actually walk to this beach, stand here, and get an awesome Instagram photo that not everybody else has, something different. So even if it seems kind of obvious, add it in your listing. And a lot of people still don't. They have really good photos, and they just stop when you would like walk out the door. So add copy and photos of what's outside your property. And you can really think about the best of, not every 60 things, but like pick your top 3 between, there's this great coffee just 20 steps from our door or just down the street, all the way to what would be the best day trip. So sometimes if you're anywhere, for example, in New York State, and you think, well, Niagara Falls is nowhere near me, it's like a 2-hour drive. Brian and I would totally do it. We're one of those people who would drive 2 hours from your property to go see the Niagara Falls as a day trip. So you could still put that in there if it's something you think your guests might enjoy, or something that a family would actually take some time to travel to a skiing location. Add it to your listing, even if it's like way outside your property, but totally doable and your guests would love.
And just to piggyback on that idea for a second, part of why we're encouraging you to do that is it's an extra value that you're adding as a host. Besides, they're not just paying for the property. Now they're paying for curation of their vacation experience, right? You're going to save them trial and effort and money by telling them the best steakhouse, the best happy hour, the best bike trail, the best ski trail, things that they might have had to come back 5 or 10 times before they figured out on their own. If you're laying that out for them, that's establishing a foundation of trust and value that they're going to say, well, we're getting so much more if we stay with these guys versus these other guys who cost the same but didn't do any of those things. So a lot of great ideas are obvious when they're presented, but they don't occur to you otherwise. So what are some examples of those? Well, there's things that we call burying the lead. We talk to a lot of hosts who, in the course of a conversation, will tell us that we're like, I don't remember seeing that in any of your photos, and I don't even think you wrote about it. And they'll be, yeah, I didn't bother to mention. And to us, it's the one thing that would make us want to go there. They're a beekeeper, and they could give you an experience of that in the backyard. They have organic garden just up the way, and they will give you their produce for free. There's one that was in Sedona who she would tell us about how, I get a lot of people that come up from Phoenix when it gets too hot down there. And then we look at her particular listing, and there were no photos that really indicated that it was an oasis or a respite from Phoenix. So we're like, well, are there any places nearby that, have some greenery or some water or a creek or something? And she's like, oh yeah, I got all that stuff. So she started peppering those into her listing, and all of a sudden she got a big influx of people coming up from Phoenix. So this is the kind of thing that you just don't think about until somebody points out, that's why I would come and stay there. So how can you as a host figure those things out for yourself? Well, one really easy way to do it is to go through your reviews. And you might even, if you're really organized, you might even make a list across the top of the page of, do they talk about the bed? Do they talk about the backyard? Do they talk about some place that they went downtown? You could itemize and make check marks for how often different things get mentioned, or just generally kind of get an idea of like, what do people really say that they liked about their experience here? And then when you look at your listing, you look for what we call the gap, and how big is the gap between what people are calling attention to versus what you're actually presenting. Because if there's a big gap, you're missing out on a lot of future bookings, because the guests are telling you what they want, and you should be telling future guests about those things. So another thing you can do is you can record yourself talking to somebody about your place. It could be a friend or your mom. It doesn't matter. Just say, prompt you, well, what do you like about your place, or why do you think your place is great? Just start rambling on about that, and then compare the transcript of that. If you could use Otter, I think is an app that'll you can play the recording and it'll turn it into words on a page, and you can scan through and say, all right, how much of the stuff I'm saying is great about this is actually represented in my photo sequence? How much of it is in my captions? How much of it is in my description? And unfortunately, a lot of times you'll find out that there's a big gap. But the fortunate part of that is that means that's money on the table that you can go back and grab. All right. Many hosts have great instincts, but they just don't trust them. So this is something that it might just be a human nature thing, that when they're talking to us, they will float trial balloons, which often are great. And we'll say, well, how come there's not a picture of that funky lamp that you really loved and you have a great story for how you got it? I'm not sure if it would appeal to everybody. Like, it's usually a fear of stepping on somebody's toes, or whether their taste would match enough of the guests or something. And we tend to go in the other direction and say, like, go for it. Go for the personality, especially if you like it. There's enough people out there for everybody. So the kind of people that like what you like will come to you, and the kind of people who don't won't. But you're only trying to fill 52 weeks a year. So it's not like you need a million of the right people. So go for the stuff that you feel strongly about, that you think adds quirk, adds personality. Do those things, and that will make you stand out. And so I think that hosts love having somebody to bounce ideas off and to get validation and to get that second opinion. Now, it's not like we always tell you to go for it. Sometimes we'll be like, that wouldn't actually make me want to book someplace. But you'd be surprised at how often the host instinct is the right instinct, but it's because you're not getting any feedback. You're in a vacuum that keeps you from being bold. So we say be bold, and if it's authentic, don't worry. There's enough guests out there for every little niche.
Yeah, and so here's somebody that we worked with on their previous photos. Like, you have the wide angles and the space is great and it's clean and lovely and looks good, but they really didn't have a lot of close-up stuff. And even after our review, they actually went and took a bunch of close-up stuff that they already had taken and put them on their listing, of games and things like that. And those are things that we added in our photo shoot as well. So just a little personality, when you come in a little bit closer, you create these smaller scenes where you can kind of really put yourself. So you're not really, again, not just selling the space, but selling the experience. And so it's little photos like this. It's not technically perfect. It's a little yellow. It could straighten the lines and blah, blah, blah. But it's so cute. And of course, they could have a fire in the fireplace, but whatever. They have popcorn. It's just cozy up. There's coffee. I'm sold. So this is already like a very cute addition. Yeah, exactly, to a listing. And then it could be funky close-ups like this of the foosball thing. And then if you can't think of, for the love of you, what to say in a photo like that in your caption, just put a guest review there. Just quote somebody who says something amazing, like, kids love the game room, and done, your caption's done. So little photos like this. So then something else that was surprising to us was constantly surprising to me. High nightly rates do not always correlate with high quality listings. And it's kind of just amazing to me. We have come across places that are $1,000 a night, that are big places, where they definitely don't have professional photos. They don't even really have good photos. They're not highlighting all the spaces. There are a lot of features missing. So there's something going on here with hosts sort of jumping the gun and not finishing what they've started. So I wrote, hosts are skipping steps just to get it done, and then they're never actually dotting those I's. So you're never good. They're never going like back to update the listing. And what happens there is, what we've heard is they hit the ground running. They put their listing up. It was sort of okay, and they started to get bookings because the place is great. And then 6 months goes by, a year goes by, suddenly the bookings taper or the seasons change and they start to freak out. This is one of those things that they need to update, and that is often when they come to us saying, what am I doing? I don't have many bookings as I did before. So then it becomes a thing where the nightly rate doesn't match the presentation anymore. You know, you've gotten your first guest in that first wave and you've written it. And now when people are looking at the listing, this is a really expensive place and it's poorly marketed. That's where you need to kind of close the gap. And so we've seen this a lot where people just purchase a big property, put some sort of listing up because they have a deadline in their head. I want to get it done by April 1st. And by God, they're going to do it. And they never actually get to circle back around and do it properly. So this was one of our sort of themes. And Brian talked about this. So your guests are actually telling you what to market and hosts are missing it. So Brian just, not everybody, but some hosts just talked about sort of not listening to your guests. So some people can actually talk to your guests when you're on the property. You could ask them like, hey, what did you do? What did you like? Where could we improve? And you can be specific, not just, oh, it's so pretty, but like, how did you sleep well? And ask about your amenities, your features. Did you enjoy this thing? Did you use the hot tub? Some people just book a place for the hot tub and never use it, but they have this fantasy of doing it. And in a lot of reviews, you know, you get started, you have 5 reviews, you get 10 reviews and you're nervous and you're biting your nails. And then it's like, okay, great, I'm getting 5 stars, we're good to go. And 50 reviews later, you have this wealth of information about what you should be highlighting. And the thing is that it can change too, especially with COVID. A lot of guests turned into local guests. No more international travel that's gone. So we have a bunch of hosts who then had to figure out, how do I market to somebody in a small village in Spain or, you know, Portugal or something, where every village looks the same. Now I actually don't have to impress someone coming from London anymore, but just look at this old town, isn't it cute? I need to talk to the locals. What makes my place special? And then they're showing off the record players and their mini bar, and just organizing their listing differently to appeal to a different crowd.
So we don't want anybody to get the impression that we're just here to say all the stuff that you guys are doing wrong, because we get some of the best hosts coming to us. We know they're the cream of the crop, but I always say this in the assessment. It's like, well, you didn't pay us for us to tell you how great you're doing. You paid us to show you where there's still a gap between how well you're doing and how well you could be doing. So it's the same for you guys at large. So these 200 assessments we did last year, they're great. Like the hosts are great. The listings are better than average. So don't get the wrong impression. We just are about optimizing, right? So everything we're saying is to help you have the most robust business possible. And so this one is
right.
about,
And I gotta say, we are digging deep. We're not getting the C- hosts. We're getting like A hosts wanting to be A+ or A- hosts that, you know, they just feel like, it's not quite perfect. So you guys are probably those. So
yeah, the ones who go on podcasts and webinars tend to be the ones that are overachievers, right?
Yep.
They're the ones that sat next to you in chemistry class and said, I think I failed it. And then they got a 93. And you're like, yeah, I'm not listening to you anymore. But anyway, that's fine. So when we talk about optimizing, you know, there's a lot of reasons to do it. Money is a big one, but some people want to optimize just for, I guess, synchronicity, or not that's the wrong word. Being synchronized between how good of a host they are and how good their listing is. They just have either listing shame or embarrassment, or like they know that they're not being represented online as well as they are at the hospitality piece of it. But there is a monetary element to it as well. Airbnb says it's up to 20% more for professional photos. But we're not just talking about professional photos. That's like real estate level. So we're talking about lifestyle photos and experiential photos and close-ups and point of view shots and a bunch of stuff that I think can take you well beyond 20%. And that's demonstrated in this study where they had 10 properties that didn't have professional photos for a year. Then they had professional photos the year after that. And so it's a small study, but it's nice and clean. And the stats were pretty staggering. They got almost 19% higher occupancy after the new photos. And then they got 16.4% better rates after the new photos. And when you multiply those together, they actually were making 38% more money when they did new photos. Now, these guys, I don't think were necessarily doing everything right either. But let's say Airbnb says 20%. These guys say 38%. Neither one of them is necessarily doing everything right. They're just moving from non-professional photos to professional photos. So let's say somewhere between 20 and 40%. depending, do the math for yourself. If you're making 50, it could be $20,000. If you're making 100, it could be $40,000 a year. And you're not going to have to do this every single year. You're going to have to do, minor upkeep, but the vast bulk of it takes place once and pays off for 3 to 5 years. So it's definitely something that, it's a great ROI compared to a lot of things that are a lot harder to do.
So then another thing is that really marketing experiences is the new way to stand out. And this has kind of been true for not just last year, but the one before. But of course, with COVID, everyone's, thinking about other things. And people have talked about this, Matt Landau's big on this, and all these other sort of people in the industry to really talk about the experience that, that what is it going to feel like when you're there? What are you going to do? And that's sort of almost like a sensory thing. You can talk about that in your listing. And that obviously should translate into your photos, because that's the first thing that people see, right? The top of your sales funnel is your listing, your thumbnail, and then people click on it and things like that. So we always say, like, your homemade cookies, nobody cares if they don't book your place. So you need to get them booked in first. So this is a photo that we love.
I want to go there. Where is that?
Right? And it's not totally perfect. As a photographer, like, the lines are not straight, and there's, they could have probably wiped the lens. I can see it in the light. They're a little smushy, but again, whatever. There's wine, there's a fireplace, I have a view. Again, I'm sold. This is fantastic. And this kind of a thing, again, with the experience, like, there's a little tub with flowers in it and champagne and all this stuff. But then for this photo, I think Brian might have taken this, or somebody in our team. They turned on the shower. So it's like a little bit of action. It's like getting an action shot of pouring wine into a glass, if you want to try one of those. And so again, you're like thinking about the experience of it all. A couple of photos here. Just one of our hosts got a photo of a man. This is in one of those old towns in Europe.
Portugal, no?
Just somebody riding a horse through town, right? And you just totally get the vibe of it. You have this beautiful golden hour theme, and it's just kind of a photo that you might not think to put in your listing, but it captures something about the place, right? You could actually see this. If you're there, you could see this, and that's about the experience again. And of course, the view of the rooftop, like, you're sitting here, and this is exactly what you're going to see. And then again, the experiences, if you offer bikes, photograph them, put them in your listing. You have floaties or something, put them out. It's totally worth it. You just got to do it once, and grab a point of view shot from the pool. Again, you're about the experience, not just selling the space, but what people can do when they're there. So tell a story, paint a picture, and really what it comes down to is creating yearning. Exactly what you said, Alondra, is like, I want to go there. I want to go there now, and you kind of want to be in that space. That's what you want to do. And it's emotional appeal over technical perfection. So I talk about straight lines and things like that. But if you have one of these awesome shots, stop worrying about the technical stuff. Just put it in your listing and see what happens. Use it as your thumbnail and just kind of see what happens.
So this is the one moment. Oh, sorry. I was going to jump in and say.
No, go ahead.
This is the part we didn't design the whole presentation to pat ourselves on the back, but this is the one part where we have to give ourselves a little bit of credit. We're not the only ones talking about lifestyle and experience and yearning at this point, but we were one of the first ones talking about it like 5 years ago. We were always saying you need to create trust, and then the second level is yearning. So trust is the foundation. If they say, well, if they thought that was a good picture of a living room, I don't think I trust that they're going to actually be picking up the phone when the power goes out. So that's obviously foundational. But the very next thing we were always saying is, what can you do to make us want to be there? And that has become front and center. So now we've moved past real estate to what Richard Fertig of Short-Term Rental University calls STR 3.0, short-term rental 3.0. It's like we're moving into what is it? What's the experience going to be like? Sean Moore from Vadis, he calls it creating the fairy tale. So we're all talking about the same kind of thing, but we're just using terminology for it. And so that it's become the next wave. It's going to be probably a couple of years before the average host pick it up, but you guys are on the cutting edge. And so you can get a couple of years a head start by doing your listing in a way that makes it so that people are like, I want to go there. That is going to be the big difference between you and a real estate shoot. So now number 9 was that? I think you were going to do number 9, Katie.
Yeah, I can jump one. The branding. This is something that we came across. It's kind of like the next level thing, right? And branding can be a couple of things. It can be literally slapping your logo on stuff, or really thinking about your theme and just going crazy with it. So a simple way to make guests trust you, if you have a logo for your property and you're putting it on towels and things like that, Etsy, hint for you guys, you can find people there who will put your logo on absolutely anything. It's a way to make your rental more memorable. So when people are picking between 5 places, they will pick yours because it had a name and it's easy to say, as opposed to just a 3-bedroom with a view close to the beach. That's everybody. So please name your place. And the trust that your tribe will find you. So if you have a theme and you kind of, you like your honeycombs or bees or a sports team, run with it, use it. Don't be afraid to, because some people will go crazy about it. And the ones that just like, oh God, that's so tacky, they're not going to book with you regardless. So just forget them. Your people will find you. Here's an example of coasters with a little logo on them and a close-up shot of those. That's something you can add to your listing. Same thing here. You can then add it to your like cups, beach gear, a lot of stuff. Or if you have a theme where your place is called, the Hemingway cabin or something, put Hemingway stuff in there. You're being handed like a free thing so that you can find a typewriter and you can find his books, some photos, easy way to decorate your place. And of course, if your place is the ultimate Packers house, go for Packers fans. Just throw up Packers gear everywhere. Because if somebody's like a hardcore fan, they just want to sleep in Packers land. This is it. This is for you. We want to do.
I love this
I can tell you to do a Disney thing because it's right. I'm not telling you to do trademark stuff, but in case you have it, just go ahead and do it. Because somebody will just absolutely love this, and you're being given a color theme. It doesn't matter whether it's stylistic or something. You just like yellow and green, yellow and green, yellow and green. And then we have some quotes from people on the pillows, stuff that like fans would know. Just don't be afraid to use it.
So we've given you a lot of stuff, but we don't you feel like you have to cram as much of this stuff into your listing as possible. You can actually use this in some ways almost like spices, where a little bit goes a long way. 3 to 5 lifestyle type shots in a listing can totally transform it. So Katie is our anchor in terms of always wanting to make sure that we still get the full room so that you get the lay of the land. And so it's not all close-ups, but a handful of close-ups and point of view shots and things that are taken in just such a way will stick in people's brains more. It will make them feel like you have a connection with them, that you have a personality versus some of the other ones that they're looking at. And so it literally is something that it's the 80-20 rule, right? It's the 20% of the shots that will have 80% of the impact in their brain over time. Also, if you look at your listing in terms of magnet photo, this is what we call the postcard because it kind of looks like that, where you get the top 5. It's a little bit different between Vrbo and Airbnb, but it's the same kind of thing. So the one on the left would have been the magnet photo because that's the only one that they would have seen previously. And then this is the postcard. And a lot of people screw up the postcard by being redundant. This one isn't particularly redundant, but it's not particularly amazing either. But sometimes they'll have like 3 shots of the living room from different angles or 3 bedrooms that all look almost the same. You really want to use this as the area to kind of your greatest hits. Like what's the best stuff about my place? Because you need to get them into the rest of the listing in that little show all photos button. And they're not going to click that if they don't like the first 5. So you can go back in a second, Katie, but this is the same place, right? So this is what he had before. This is what he has now. So we're developing a personality, a theme. We're adding brightness. We're adding color. We're kind of coordinating everything. That is the kind of place that a certain kind of guest is going to be like, I'd like to see more of that. So it's you win the magnet and the postcard. Those are the 2 first hurdles. You got to get them off the highway into your little cul-de-sac. And then you got to get them to say, yeah, I think I want to see the whole listing. This is another example. This one, I think, was done by Evolve. And then they hired us. And the next one is what we replaced it with. They had all kinds of, we talked about burying the lead. They had a home theater. They had a game room. They had a jacuzzi. And none of them were really being adequately represented It wasn't that they weren't in the top 5, but they weren't being photographed in quite the way that brings them out in the best. So this isn't going to appeal to everybody either, but the kind of people who like this stuff now going to be really intrigued to go the rest of the way. So it's really about picking your spots, finding a half dozen or even less things that are going to be your key signature items, and make sure you get really good photos of those. And that will go most of the way towards taking an average or below average listing and bringing it to an above average listing.
Yep. So at the end, a bit of a deviation from what we've been talking about. I wanted to share with you some photo tips, because I'm always like, we need to give actionable stuff. I want to show things on how to take photos. So I talked about emotional perfection over emotional appeal over technical perfection. And now I'm gonna rain on that parade. So here's how you improve your photos technically. Because I know I love editing. I love photo editing. I was an editor. I was a colorist. So I love that stuff. And I know everybody else in the world hates it, except other people who are from post-production. So I understand people don't want to edit their photos. So I kind of want to give you tips and something that I picked up from listings that just drives me crazy, of how do you take photos where you actually maybe don't need editing. Like something that you can't quite put your finger on, why it just doesn't quite look that good. I'm going to put your finger on it. Here's what it is. So get sharp, decisive, professional composition by just holding your camera right. And when I say camera, I mean your phone. Your smartphone is fine. Don't let people tell you like, oh, they just took out their iPhone. No, it's not about that. iPhones are awesome. You can totally use an iPhone. So here are the 3 rotations that I talk about on our virtual photo shoots all the time. And I'm going to try to use, I'm holding my toddler at the same time. Please forgive me. I'm going to try to hold out my phone and show you these a little bit. Actually, I don't know if they can see our recorded screens. You guys might not be able to, but I'll try to talk you through it too. So if you're holding your phone, pretend like you're taking a picture. You could actually do it right now. Your smartphone, pretend like you're taking a photo with it. So the Ferris wheel, and we used to call it the Rolodex. So think about it, if you're flipping through a Rolodex or the Ferris wheel, and your phone is just going, or I guess I have my background. I might change this just so that at least you guys can see this. So this is something that creates distorted lines. So you're pointing up or you're pointing down, and you're doing like a Rolodex. So this is what people do. They walk into a room and they have a bunch of nice things and furniture, and they start pointing down to take photos of it, and that doesn't work. So you need to back up in a room, back up where you're almost outside the room, and then if you want to have the photo be lower or higher, you move it like an elevator. So don't tilt it and point down or point out. You have it look straight into the room like a laser coming out of it, and then you just lift it up and down like an elevator. So that's a good way. And then you want to have it pretty low, so that when you go to your property and start taking photos, you almost have it at your waist level or at your belly button, and then you don't move it from there. And if you need to capture something that's higher, don't tilt it. You just lift it like an elevator. The other one is the steering wheel. So picturing a steering wheel kind of tilting left or right. This is an easy way to fix horizons. So it drives me completely crazy when I see a lot of fantastic listings where the horizon's just completely askew. Really, you were running and you took a photo and that's what you used? I understand sometimes it's kind of tough to see, but when you're capturing a room for your rental, please try to make sure that you're keeping your horizon straight. And this is an easy way to think about the steering wheel thing and how you're rotating your phone like a steering wheel to fix the horizons, to keep the horizontal lines straight, especially outdoors where you have like a clear horizon. Indoors, you could get away with, not being that accurate. But when you have the ocean and the sky, it's really obvious if the whole thing is super wonky. So one of those things, and these are things that these lines get straightened professionally. And when I look at a listing and I see straight lines, I immediately know that was a professional photographer. It's the one thing that always tells me whether a professional photographer took the photos or not. And the last one is kind of the revolving door. So you're almost like spinning it like a dreidel. And this is something that comes down to composition. So when you're figuring out, how do I shoot a room? What do I photograph? Where do I point the camera? You're going to do 2 things from now on. You're either going to this is the decisive part. You're going to point to a corner or you're going to point straight on. And I'm going to go into some photo examples and then we're done. So here's a before photo that's kind of pointing at something, not quite at a corner, but not quite at a back wall. And they're trying to capture the map and the lamps and the dining thing. So you're going to stop it. So we added a map here. This is the Packer's house, and they have a map of the world that adds some color pop of where they have fans all over the world. And then I'm doing a thing where I'm just aiming straight at the back wall, just dead straight at the back. Just a decision I made because you get this nice symmetry with the chairs and the lamps. So not wishy-washy, just straight at the back. And I'm holding it at a height where those lines are straight. So this is kind of high actually, but if I'm not tilting up or down, I'm just lifting the camera like an elevator. You get those nice straight lines. Here's another version, pointing at a corner. So not half and half, not sure where to do it. Straight across to a corner, into another room. So we get a little bit of details about what's coming up in the next room. And then we get this nice sense of connecting the spaces. So now when we're looking at the pool table photo, we understand, oh, right, that was next to the kitchen. I saw it from the kitchen. Here they used this sort of a fisheye effect for the kitchen. Don't do that. Divide and conquer. Here's a shot again across the kitchen into the dining area, capturing more things at once. Dead straight at the back wall. The reverse, we get this nice symmetry with the lamps, the chairs, and we have this door open to the back bedroom. Dead straight again, just across the whole space, and we get a lot of information there too. And then you can I did a corner one too. I do all the options and then I just curate later which ones work. Here kind of getting like a wider shot of the room. Aiming from corner to corner makes the room sort of naturally look wide. Same effect comes from holding the camera lower. You don't need a wide angle lens. It'll just naturally look wider. So here on the left, we have the before of a bedroom, again, kind of high, sort of a little bit awkward with the framing, kind of pointing down, not at a corner, not at the back wall. And so here's how we fixed it. We came lower. It's not a vertical photo. It's in landscape mode, not in portrait mode. Turned on, did a couple of things, turned on the lamp, aiming straight at the back. And then you do both. I took the one from the foot to the bed straight to the back. And then we're doing, sorry, my toddler's hitting me. And then we did the corner to corner one, the classic one from the foot of the bed to the head of the bed across the room. So you do both. Same thing here. You have to take one shot, gun to your head. It's the one going across the bed, diagonally corner to corner, from the foot to the head, foot to the head. If you're only going to take one bedroom shot, that's the one. And you're kind of low. You're really low with the camera. And then we did the death straight at the back wall. Here's something different. Straight at the back wall, but across the bed to capture a little bit more of the room. And then the classic corner to corner stuff. Smaller bedroom. You can't really do corner to corner in there. You can't tug into a corner. Straight at the back wall.
Oh, uh-oh. I think we've lost Coulter.
Okay.
I think we're still on.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
I think we're still on, yeah. So we'll try to keep going. And then another one, corner to corner of the whole space, holding the camera really low. Again, and if you want to do something different, show us where you're standing. Don't you just spin around and aim straight at the back wall.
Yes.
So again, you're making a decisive decision, either straight at a wall or at a corner. Same thing here in the kitchen. You're a little bit closer, giving like a wide view of the place. And if you want to try something different, again, corner. So you're picking one or the other, or dead straight at the amenities. And again, you're getting this nice symmetry with the chairs. And then I wanted to do a little bit of close-up shots. So how to do those artsy close-up things, right? Because this is something that I constantly have to tell hosts when we are doing our photo shoot, is come lower, and come closer, and come closer. So when you do those close-ups of your art or your food or your drinks, almost at eye level to the stuff. So really shove your camera in the face of the bread, come low, almost on the countertop, and that's how you get this sort of a nice artsy effect. Same thing with like furniture that you maybe want to highlight. You come lower, so don't just stand in front of them and point down at them. Come to their level and just snap a photo. Same thing here. Just one thing I have to tell the host all the time, come lower and come closer, and you get these sort of stately shots of even just the shampoo. And then when you have things that don't work in that dimension, you can't read the text on the book, or you can't see the coffee in the coffee cup, try one where you're just directly above and you're getting this sort of nice magazine-y layout almost. So those are just my simple tips for close-ups and for how to cover your big spaces.
And we're going to take questions in a minute, and then at the end, we're going to offer you a very special deal for an opportunity to get an assessment from us. We usually do these at $97. We're doing it over 70% off for only $27 for anybody who's from Hostfully. We spend a good amount of time doing our homework before the call. So we ask you for your listing up front, and then we spend close to an hour as a team working on that. And then I spend an hour with you going over the results. And we talk a little bit about at the very end for 5 minutes, if you wanted to engage us in some capacity. We have 3 different ways that we can work with you now, ranging from very, very minor input from us where you watch our course and Katie edits the results of what you take from your own photo shoot, all the way to hiring us to do just about everything for you. And then there's a middle ground as well. But we talk about that for just a couple of minutes. It's very light on the commercial portion and heavy on the education of what you personally can do in your place to make your listing better.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for that information. It's been incredibly helpful as always. I know we do have a couple of questions that we'll go through. There's a question that says, if I have a small place, should I focus on experiences over the actual rental?
Short answer, probably yes.
Slightly longer.
So you have.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was going to say, we used to talk about a different kind of rule of thirds. There's one in photography, but our rule of thirds was that at least a third of your shot should be of your place, even if your place is boring. But you could go as much as 2/3 about the environs of the city or the activities or what's out in the backyard. So that's one way of thinking about it, is like, why would somebody come to your place? What would they want to do when they're at your place? Are they there for convention? Are they there for a particular sport? Are they there for hiking? And you can start to play up those things. But then within the place, you absolutely always want to have a handful of experience. I don't know, we rarely come across anybody who's doing too many of them, but I'm not suggesting that you have to just stack it to the rooftops with experiences, because 3 to 5 really good ones will be enough regardless of the size of the place.
Perfect.
Right. We actually often ask for our 3x3. So 3 top activities and 3 top like food or drinks. And if you don't know what your guests like to do, you just pick your own favorites that you would recommend somebody would experience, like what you would tell your friends about. Yeah.
And then we have another question. Is there a time of year or time of day it's best to take photos?
So probably yes. It depends on where you are. If you live in a 4-season place, I would kind of skip the in between fall and spring time. You know, when it's really horrible time of year, there are no leaves, but it's still gray. So if you have a rental that's working all year round, you can try to capture the best of those seasons. So the gorgeous fall foliage, best of summer, best of spring. And then try to, if you can get a handle on when your guests start booking, if you're getting, for example, holiday bookings, Christmas bookings in September, then you could start to sprinkle those Christmas photos into your listing a little bit of ahead of time, just to kind of tease those guests who are looking at the holidays and for when to book. So time of year really kind of depends on when your environment looks good. And if you're somewhere in like California where it's almost always the same, then it doesn't really matter.
And then we've got another question about drone shots. What's your opinion of drone shots? They are certainly cool, but can lead to a guest thinking that, oh, give me 1 second, I lost the question here. To a guest being disappointed when they get to a house and don't see the same view they saw online. I know you can use a photo caption to clarify, but what are your thoughts on pros versus cons on drone shots?
So I think drone shots can be really helpful, especially for bigger properties, or if you have one available and you want to point to like a crowded your apartment in Old Town Nice, and you want to draw an arrow, like here's where we are. You can use a drone shot, but just to kind of show the property and the surrounding area around your property, especially if you have the grounds are big, or like where specifically you are near a beach or a lake. As for views, yeah, you could use captions. So if you want to highlight something that would be kind of trickier to see, I'm trying to think of an example. Like glacier wouldn't be something exactly, because you wouldn't have a cabin right on glacier, but something like a mountain view, definitely clarifying the captions, that it isn't exactly a view from the property, or say like, this is a 5-minute walk or something like that. So we have done that where we use captions. And then if you do get a nice view from your property somewhere, or from the balcony or something, I like to do is like to have a little bit of property, something from the property showing in the photo. So the bottom of the railing, the balcony, or a little glass or chair, so that you can really see like this truly is a view from the property. Otherwise, yes, I would use captions.
And we've got another question that asks, do you change your pictures depending on summer or winter, and how many months before the season?
Right. So that again kind of depends on your booking lead time, is the term you might have heard. And of course, that has all gone out the window with COVID. We don't necessarily know what our booking lead time is anymore, but hopefully things will go back to normal soon-ish, depending on where you are in the world. So you kind of want to just look at your calendar and think about when you're getting those seasonal bookings. And one trend that we've seen with COVID is that the lead time has really basically gone away. People book 2 weeks in advance as opposed to 6 months in advance. So yes, you do want to update your listing, and I don't have your Christmas photos up in the summer. But then when you get into fall, it gets darker. That's when you would put those up. So we do recommend that you kind of change it based on the seasons. If you have to do it, I would say just do it a couple months ahead of whatever you're promoting, because people are kind of browsing, planning their holidays. When are we going to have time off? So I think a few months would be good as a general rule.
And then one question, which is always a good one, how do you vet a professional photographer?
Oh man, their portfolio. And when you want one for vacation, I know Brian's going to go off. Because a lot of people do real estate. I've done real estate, and it is a different game, because you're working for a realtor who just wants the wide angle shots, and then they get the people on the property. And if they don't like that one, they say, oh, we have another property that you can come view a week from now. And obviously that's not how vacation rentals work. So you really want the photographer to show you some vacation homes that they've done. And you could just ask them like, hey, are you used to taking, these kinds of shots, or I love these kinds of shots, and tell them what you want. It's kind of like going to a hairdresser and then you leave completely mortified by what you got, got. You need to be specific with them, and you can be specific with your photographer, even if you think you're being annoying. Don't let them just dye your hair red if that's not what you wanted. You can tell them, I really love these close-up shots of these features in my house. I really want to, could you please highlight these funky wood carvings in the chair, and I love this thing. Make them take the photo in, of course, a nice way. But you can kind of direct them, here's the style that I like. And I'm sure they would accommodate, because they would do the same thing if they're doing baby photography or wedding photography. You can kind of ask them, hey, my place is kind of dark and moody. It's not bright and airy. So that's how I'd like them to look. And you can give them your thoughts on how to sort of edit the photos and how to present the place. But I would definitely ask for the portfolio and then just do a quick exchange.
And then I would add that we think that you are a lot closer to being able to take professional level photos with your phone than you think you are, probably. So we've kind of made a career out of this over the last 5 years, is getting hosts to be able to take photos that they feel proud to put up and that nobody knows weren't taken by a hired gun. And there's a lot of advantages to that. One of which is that you know your place the best. Another is that you have more access to your place on more times, more days than any photographer. So you don't have to just wait for a bunch of stuff that you want to change to stack up and then get a new photo shoot done. You're the one who's in there every week or every month or every season, and you can take those photos, and then they don't even just have to go in your listing. They can go in your Instagram and your Facebook and wherever else. And it becomes a seamless thing where you're not, jarring in terms of what kind of photos do you see when they go to your listing versus what kind of photos do you post in your other social media. So, we started out with the hypothesis that phone cameras were going to keep getting better, and that the key to taking great photos was more about technique than it was about the hardware anyway. And that all those things have become more and more true every single year. And so if you're somebody who has a million other things and you just don't have time to become a photographer, or you have no interest in it and it's not something you're into, that's a different story. But anybody in the middle there where they're like, I just don't know if I could do it, you can. And it's not that hard. And we've done it for hundreds of hosts, and it keeps paying dividends for years.
Right. I was going to say all the after photos that we showed you in the slideshow were actually technically taken by hosts. So they were from, except for that one shower one, I think that was when our team was on location. That's the only one. Everything else was taken by hosts with a smartphone. We were just on a video call. That's how it works. And I direct them, step over there, point over there, and then they actually take the shot. So it is totally possible. They produce some really amazing stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. So we've got a couple of shout outs to you two from Susan, just saying, highly recommended. I've worked with Kati on a remote shoot. It was a great experience. And
I wonder if
also
that's Susan whose background I'm using right now. It might be.
Could be.
With a photo that she took, by the way.
It could be. And Christine also says, I can't hardly wait for our shoot at the end of the month. So certainly we've got some fans here tonight. So yeah. Oh, Susan says yes. Well, thank you again, everyone, so much for joining, and especially Kati. I know it's late where you are, and you're Superwoman. So thank you again for joining us, Brian. You too. We appreciate both of you so much. And as mentioned, I'll go ahead and send a thank you message to everyone, as well as a link to the recording. If not today, certainly by tomorrow once it's ready, and we'll be sharing the recording and just a follow-up email in the next day or so. But thank you again so much for joining us. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.